Yeah, so I think we can start now. We already have 18 people. So myself, Vasant, for those who are joining for the first time, and we previously have conducted boot camps on JMeter, Neoload, and last week we had a boot camp on Azure DevOps integrating with JMeter. So if you haven't watched it, please do check the recording. So I have posted that in our YouTube channel. So this week, so it's going to be a kind of a mix of people. So we are going to collect inputs from everybody who have joined this roundtable. And yeah, so anybody can share your experiences and what kind of challenges you have faced while you were collecting your NFRs. And basically, this is going to be a kind of a mix so that everybody can share their knowledge in this roundtable. So yeah, just a quick introduction about me. So myself, Vasant. I'm working with Bank of England, London, and I'm running this little Sly YouTube channel for the last 2, 3, 4 years. And yeah, so yeah, I can just give a quick introduction about you, and then we can start the roundtable. Yeah, I can please go ahead. Yeah, Abhinash, you can start.
Yeah, hi, Basant. Um, I am into performance testing and engineering. I have
Mhm,
around 8+ years of experience in performance testing and overall 12.
mhm.
So, in been working in MNC and yeah, still continuing.
Okay, thank you, thanks, Abhinash. So you basically are from which part of, I mean, like, which city are you working now?
I'm in Bangalore.
Bangalore. Oh, okay, okay, nice to know. Thank you, Abhinash.
Thank
Harish.
Hey, hi, Yusuf.
Hi, Harish.
Yeah, I actually already joined your bootcamp from last 3 weeks. I'm
Hmm.
from performance testing and engineering. I'm working for past 4 years. I'm also
Hmm.
working in Wipro. I have been to JMeter as well as load runner,
Hmm.
as well as some monitoring tools, dynatrace as well as cloud.
Okay, okay, great to know that. Yeah, Karthikeyan.
Hello, team. So, my name is Karthikeyan. So, in QA automation and performance, I have total 13 years of experience.
Mhm.
So, relevant to load fully performance, I have around two. So, I'm kind of the new for the load and the thing. So, I just joined to get the idea from you guys. So,
Okay.
I'm in Budapest, Hungary.
Sorry, what's that? What is in the last?
I'm in Budapest, Hungary.
Okay, okay, yeah. I think it's too early for you. I think it might be 6:30, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, thank you so much for joining the round table. Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, and Henna Rose Joshi can give a quick introduction, and then we'll start.
Hello, sorry, I just joined.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, just give a quick introduction, and then we'll move on because we are getting introduction from the people. So just give a quick
Oh,
introduction about you, and then yeah, we'll go ahead. Yeah.
so I'm Henna. I have 10 years of experience in performance testing and engineering space. And currently, I'm working in Oracle as a product performance engineer, where we handle database as well as on-prem cloud as well.
Mhm. Thank you. And Sai Krishna. Sai, you're on mute.
Hi, Vasant. Hi. Good
Hi,
morning.
hello. Yeah, morning.
Yeah, Vasant, I have total 4 years of experience. I am
Hmm.
into manual and performance testing.
Hmm. Okay, thank you. And Chinna.
I was also have data many years of experience in performance testing.
Mhm.
Currently, I'm working in a small startup company. I'm from Hyderabad.
Okay. Thank you so much. Mohan?
Yeah, hi.
Mohan, you're on mute. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear us. Yeah. Thank you.
Myself, Ram Mohan, and having 8+ years of experience in performance testing. So I
Mhm,
worked on load runner and JMeter and neo load. So
mhm.
currently I'm working in an organization, an MNC organization. So
Okay.
this is
Thank
the
you.
first
Thank you.
session with you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Chetan?
Yeah, hi. Hi, good morning, everyone. So I have 4.5 years of experience into the performance testing tools like LR and JMeter. So
Mhm,
currently I'm using JMeter only. So I'm working
mhm.
in startup company in Bangalore.
Okay. Thank you. And you're basically from Chennai or Bangalore?
No, my native is Tirupati, but I'm working in
Okay.
Bangalore. Yeah,
Bangalore. Okay. Great.
yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chetan, for joining. And Umesh?
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, hello everyone.
Hi.
So I'm having 2.5 years of experience, and
Mhm,
uh, I have mostly used JMeter, but I have knowledge on Roadrunner and some performance monitoring tools like Dynatrace and
mhm.
Splunk. But
Okay.
currently I'm yeah, it's currently I'm in the my first workplace. I don't have
Mhm,
the industrial level graduation or varieties of job level
mhm.
experience.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for this call. I'll definitely take some maybe with the
Mhm.
experienced people.
Sure. Sure. Definitely. And Rahul?
Yeah, I can give you. Uh, Actually, having a 4 years of experience, I was completely working into the performance testing.
Mhm,
I never get a chance to work on the other, but from JMeter, I didn't use any uh, tools. So I want to upgrade by seeing this your blogs every time.
Okay. Sure. Thanks. Thanks, Rahul. Sai Kumar?
Yeah, hi, Vasan. Good
Hi.
afternoon. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I have 4 years of experience in performance testing. I got a chance to
Mhm,
work on three FS tools like
mhm,
JMeter, Load Runner, and ELOad as well. So
mhm,
currently, I'm working in a MNC company. I get a chance
mhm.
on-site opportunity. So recently, I
Mhm.
shifted into that Malaysia. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great. Great.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you. Thanks,
Yeah.
Sai Kumar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
This,
Santosh. Yeah. Hi,
yeah,
Santosh.
I have around 18 years of experience.
Mhm,
Yeah, I'm working in Tech Mahindra currently. I've been using the tools of Load Runner, JMeter, and a bit of Gatling.
mhm. Okay. Thank you, Santosh. And Satish.
Yeah, hi all. Good morning. So I'm from Maharashtra. So I have
Mhm,
completely 4.5 years of experience in the JMeter
mhm.
and I'm working in the Qualities India Private Limited, Bangalore.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. And Srinu.
Yeah, hi Vashant.
Hi,
I
Srinu.
have 5+ years of experience in performance testing, both
Mhm,
load and run geometry tools. Right
mhm.
now, not working, looking to change.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for joining, and all the very best. And Swarupa.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi Osint. Yeah, I have
Hi.
totally 3 years of experience and
Mhm,
in the performance and the manual testing. Previously,
mhm,
I worked as Capgemini in the 1.5 year. Now I'm working
mhm,
as manual tester. But
mhm,
I have one doubt was in the currently I'm looking
mhm,
for change, but I'm
mhm,
facing interviews, but I'm unable to.
mhm,
As that interviews, how we will
mhm.
overcome that.
Sure. We'll catch up during this roundtable. Sure, but no need to worry about that because we have a lot of people who have experience in clearing interviews and in fact in conducting interviews as well. So yeah, we'll just go ahead with the roundtable, and then at the end you can ask your questions like whatever the challenges you're facing, and then we'll try to answer that.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining. Yeah. And Vinod.
Hi, I am Vinod. I
I
have
will.
3 years of experience in performance testing, and I have good
Mhm,
knowledge in JMeter and load
mhm,
runner neolog. And in my experience, I have good experience in JMeter tool and for application monitoring tools like Grafana and Infrastructure. So this is
Okay. Okay.
recently I got offer in startup company. So in this company, I have role is performance testing.
Okay. Okay. So what kind of tools are you using for testing?
JMeter and Grafana.
Oh, just these two tools. Okay. Okay. Nice. Nice. And thank you so much. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for
And
this.
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for giving opportunity for this.
Okay. No problem. Yeah. So this is a kind of a roundtable because here we are going to share everybody's knowledge and those who have experience in terms of collecting the NFRs. Yeah. So NFRs, we all know that's the very first basic steps in collecting the requirements. So NFR is okay. NFR is something like a non-functional requirement. So which is because we do have different. Okay, let me just share my screen. Just let me know if you can see the whiteboard. Can you see the whiteboard?
No, Vasant.
No, okay, fine. Entire screen. Yep, just can you see now?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's loading.
Now it should. Okay, okay, yeah, great.
Got notification sharing screen.
Yeah, I started presenting.
I'm able to see your screen, Sam.
Oh, you're able to see.
Able to see
Oh,
now.
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, then thank you. Yeah. So yeah, like I discussed, like in this roundtable, we are going to discuss about what is the NFR, so the non-functional requirements. So let's start. So yeah, so this non-functional requirements are a kind of a goals that will be created for performance testing. So we do have, like we all know, we do have functional and non-functional. So the functional comes under the manual testing, the function testing the functionality using manual testers, the functional testers, and with the automation people. But the non-functional comes in a separate manner. So where we do have we do the load testing and performance testing and security, like whatever that comes under other than the functional, so they fall under the non-functional testing, which we do check the quality. So it's not about the functionality, it's about the more into the quality. So but to start testing the non-functional, that is the non-functional testing thing, we do have to collect the non-functional requirements, because without collecting the requirements we do not know what to test. Like this is something like a path for us, so we have to draw the path and then we have to travel on that, right? So that's the reason we have to come up with the non-functional requirements. And this should be, I mean, like it's a combined requirement for all types of non-functional tests. And what do we collect here? So some of the simple examples are like, we do collect, I mean, like we normally collect these requirements, and there are a lot of challenges in while collecting the non-functional requirements, which we all know, because most of the times we will not be getting a client who has a lot of knowledge, or at least a basic knowledge in giving us the non-functional requirements. For example, we do need to collect the number of users for the testing, and what is the response times that they expect for each page, and then the number of requests, we can say it as throughput. What is the throughput do they expect for testing? So we can tell us make it as like throughput or number of requests per second or per minute or per hour. And then even collecting the CPU utilization, because they might have a set of requirements that I need. It's mostly we do not fall under the bottleneck, something like which is crossing more than 80, but still we do have a basic requirement, like it should not cross like 30% during even during the high load. right? So even that again is a kind of a requirement. So again there, so these are some of the very basic requirements that we do collect. But apart from this, we do have to collect other set of requirements. For example, this is again very basic, which is what is the scope of the application, because we do have a very big application. Whatever we test, it's going to be a very big application, and it has been running for a long time. If it's an existing application, it has to be a very big application. But again, we do need to know what are we going to test as part of this release, right? So scope of the application. So what are we going to test for this release, or are we going to test the entire application? Because no matter what, we are not going to test the entire application, but always we do start testing with the smaller scope, with the smaller area of testing, right? So if, for example, if you are having a very big application, we do start testing the search functionality, or the uh, billing, or the add to cart, or whatever, in terms of e-commerce applications. So uh, we do need to find what is the scope of the application, and when we find like the scope, we do need to find what are the transactions that we're going to test, and what are the steps that we need to do. Like for example, it's we have to just go to a landing page and then to the login, and after that, what are the links we're going to click, and what are the pages that we're going to click. So that is the so overall, these are the things that we're going to collect, right, in terms of non-functional requirements. But the real challenge is, we all know that if you are working for a client who really has a knowledge, or if he can tell you that, okay, so these are the things I want, then it's like a cakewalk for us. Like we can start working on our uh, testing, or we can start working on the next steps. It's not testing, but yeah, the next steps, the test planning, the dates, setting up the environment, and all the other stuff. But what if your client do not know what to give or what to do, right? So that is the basic challenge, right? Most of us face that, because since we are also new into so it's not for people who are like experienced, because people who are experienced, yeah, they can really handle these issues. But people who are really new to the performance testing, and where budding performance engineers, but anyway, even this is being faced by experienced people as well. But yeah, for the budding people who really do not know what to collect and how to collect, yeah, that's going to be the big challenge. So this roundtable, we are going to discuss about that. So how are we going to collect it, and what are the challenges you have faced, because that will definitely help everybody to learn how to mitigate those challenges. Right, so let me start from my experience. So for the very first time when I was joining my performance engineering and testing, so I really had these issues. So what is that is, I do got the application, like what to test. So I had a lead. It's a kind of a team lead setup, and I was like joined as part of the team. So I have got to know what is the application that I'm going to test, and what are the transactions I'm going to test, after having multiple discussions with the business. But the problem here is, they have come up with the hits. Okay, so there are like several applications, because we all know the performance team is kind of a one team for the entire application, or like for the entire business, right? So even though there are like multiple functional teams, we will be having only one performance testing team who will be testing the entire application. So we all know the entire application, and everybody in the team knows us, like, because we are the only team who will be testing the entire application. So what happened is, for one of the applications which I have faced, so I have got the scope, what to test, but then they did not know how to give the throughput, or they did not know what to do. So at that scenario, they asked us to step into Google Analytics, and then we have found those transactions which we are going to test, and then we have found the peak hours transaction, like the peak hours hit rate, and then we have filtered it for the 8 hours, which is starting from the 9 to 5, because I was basically working previously into a uh, airline domain. So there, people used to book their tickets basically between 9 to 5, and that's the peak hour, right? So I've started to pick up the numbers from Google Analytics, and I have picked like the for every hour, like from 9 to 10, what is the hit rates, like how many users have logged in. And after that, I have collected for each transactions, because overall we could see a lot of people who are coming in, but still the rate of booking is somewhere lesser, because people used to search for the flights, then they used to search for the tickets, right, the ticket prices, right? So once people started to come into the application, there were like a lot of breakup inside the transactions as well, because not everybody will directly go and book the tickets. They'll be looking for a cheaper price or a better price, or they will look for the uh, flights which suits their time, right? So all these things has to happen. So my transaction at that time was to do a testing for the booking. So they have to come, they have to search, they have to check their PNR status, and then they have to do the booking. So all these were the part of the transaction. So this is how I have approached for one of the application in collecting the hits, the number of hits. So after that, once I have collected the number of hits, then I have prepared a table, I prepared a chart, and then with that number, and then I have used, so that's the very first time I have used the Little's law. So then that's where I have come to know what Little's law is and how to use that to prepare the workload modeling, right? And then I have started preparing the workload modeling, and then it went after that. So that's how, that's the very first experience. That's, it's a very difficult experience, because everybody like me like, would have come across that situation, because not everybody will give the numbers directly. So this is one of the very first example where it triggered me to learn how to use Little's law effectively, and that's how everything has started. So yeah, this is about my experience. So yeah, I can start with your experience. Like, what was the challenges you have faced, and how do you come up with the numbers, or like anything, like you must have been working with a client who is completely new to performance engineering, and he must have given you a lot of challenges. So yeah, you can start with your experience now.
Yeah, this is Santosh.
Hi, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Regarding this NFR, like for our specific clients, right? So they even look out for number of cores also, like for servers, like what is the number of cores, and
Mm-hmm.
based on which, and your heap utilizations, max and min utilize heap. Also, they take into consideration actually, because based on the cores, they decide that because it's an payments based app, so they decide number of payments that come across your application. So they get the production, like previous release data, like with this much number of cores, and this is your volume, and with your
Okay.
next projections of your capacity planning, like for your upcoming
Okay, so
release.
when you say, sorry to interrupt. So when you say the core, so you mean you're talking about the CPU cores?
Yes, yes, the end product.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, let me just note it down for everybody to know. So yeah, so the client have given you the requirement to collect the
Yeah,
CPU cores. Is that right? Okay.
yeah, because they have a technical architect also. So
Mm-hmm.
when I mean to say, yeah, because it's more technical in detail, like the course details come from the let's say minimum CPU cores and your Java heap size, like minimum and maximum, what is
Mm-hmm.
required. Like these come from your earlier releases. So I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So based on their volume projections and for the previous releases and the upcoming releases and the expectations of the new clients, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
they come up with these numbers as well. And apart from it, uh, yeah, the volumes in the sense either it be messages or the projections for upcoming things, and they come up with the next upcoming. Because if it's an on-prem, then migration. How do we migrate it to your cloud, and from cloud again uh, to the Kubernetes kind of a setup. So the migration activities are also like come into the requirements. Like if it's a migration release.
Okay. Okay. So Santosh, I have a question here. So when you say they come up with their comment from the previous release, does that mean that they do want to have only that level of uh, utilization to happen, right? For example, like if I'm not wrong, so they do have, for an example, like if they have only around 25% in uh, their previous release. So does that mean that they need to have only that amount of utilization, or how do they really work, like in terms of the CPU cores?
Yeah, CPU cores like yeah, if the utilization is above 70 or 80%, then they plan for the next increasing of it.
Okay. Okay. So does that it's a kind of an on-prem, or it's a kind of a cloud environment, Santosh? Like, what was the
Yeah, yeah, we do
part?
it in on-prem, and
Hmm,
the
hmm.
productions they are in, I think, AWS or something. They're in
Oh,
cloud
okay,
actually.
okay, okay. Great. So other than the CPU core, so what were the other challenges that you have faced? Like you really felt that, okay, so this is
Yeah,
too
these
much
are
of
the
work for
new,
me. Yeah.
yeah, these
Yeah.
are the new things actually, like because this is completely like a middleware kind of an activity. Like,
Hmm, hmm,
so mainly when it comes to this one, right? So we have like a middleware kind of like we don't focus on the UI or the web services, or so it is only your middleware activities and your database. So how like testing of this thing was a challenge actually. So we had to get the support of their in-house tools and use
hmm,
them and
hmm.
do the middleware kind of a testing, because general I'm not aware of the tools
Hmm,
intended
hmm,
to
hmm.
support the middleware performance testing, like directly the
Oh,
load into your middleware.
okay, okay, okay. Great, great. Thank you. Thanks on this one. So other than this, what kind of, so is this for, this will be like for one of your application, right? So did you face
Yeah,
any other challenges, like apart from this, like some other challenges where you really felt that, okay, I must really share this to the group. So because people will be aware of this thing, and how did you mitigate that? Like what were the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge? Okay, so you have come up, the people have come up with this. So how did you collect those NFRs? Like how did you come up with those numbers?
yeah, but yeah, it's not a complete accurate solution, but I was
Hmm, hmm,
good enough to have a very strong technical team in the
hmm,
client
hmm,
side and the project team who were able to decode my questions
hmm.
properly, and they used to come up with the answers actually.
Okay.
So having a strong technical team in the other end, like both the sides, will help you to
Hmm.
get those answers, because whatever I speak, they're able to get it. So that
Yeah.
was one way,
Mhm.
good way. If you don't get those kind of people, then getting the information from the client side is a bit challenging.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because yeah, like you said, people must understand what we are trying to ask, and then they must, we must also understand like what they are trying to say. Yeah. So we
Yeah,
should
because
meet
yeah,
at
I
a
have a
point.
project. Yeah, I have a project manager, but he knows
Hmm.
in depth of a technically, like he's a people come technical manager. So
Oh, okay.
when you get
Okay.
those kind of people, right, so it becomes more advantage for you. So
True. True.
yeah,
I
thanks.
agree. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Santosh. Thanks for that. And yeah, let me tell you my experience again. Like just a quick thing, because what happened is this is another situation where we do not have the even the uh, they have come up with a requirement that we need to have to test the application, but then they do not know what to test. Like for example, they said, okay, so we are going to test this application. We need to test the application. That's the very first time that the application was running for a long time. But then the business told us that, okay, so from this release onwards, we need to test this application also, because we were like testing some 26 applications, and this is going to be another application. I mean, it's just a kind of a separate line of business. So they told us that we have faced some some performance issue in one of our applications recently, and so since the management want us to test, right? So these are some of the things which normally pops up. So we normally used to get somewhere around, and then they used to come up there through our leads, through the managers, and tell them that, okay, so we need to test this application in some high level meeting. They used to tell, and then this comes to us. But the problem here is, what happened is, like, they do not know what to test, right? So they told us we have to test, but it's a kind of a big application around, like, we whenever we know, so we don't normally work on one set of application, we think that's the whole application, but it's not like that. We do have a huge scope, like the entire scope, but in that we're going to just test only a simple part of it, right? So they told us, okay, we need to test all these, and uh, then we have question. So we then started to talk with the business analyst who were previously working on that. We just talked with the functional testing team, and then understood like what was the release that's going to be released very recently, and like what were the issues they have faced previously. Right. So once you start to understand what's the issue they have faced, and then we have come up with the solution. Like, okay, so these were the issues you faced, and how do they start? Like, from where do they start, or like at which point of time that issue have come up? Like, what happened is like the application went slow, or it does not react. It does not been responding for a long time. So then we have pitched in, and then we found what are the transactions that have triggered, and then we have come up with a plan. So this is another experience. Like, uh, you have to test an application somewhere out of blue. So but again, the one key thing is like you have to keep discussing about this to everybody in the team, like to the stakeholders, everybody in the stakeholders. It can be a business analyst, it has to be a functional testing team, it has to be the development team. So it's not like something like someone will come up with a document. So we have to jump in, and then we have to start preparing all those things. Only then we can come up with all those requirements, and then that will help us to move forward. So that is all about the non-functional testing, because the key here is like we have to start keep communicating with everybody, and then we have to take information, the maximum information we take, that'll be very helpful for us to proceed next. Yeah. So yeah, now we can start sharing experience. I think Chetan have come up. Chetan, can you share your
Yeah.
experience? Yeah, please go ahead, Chetan.
So I just want to understand one question. I mean, I just want to raise one question here. Are Santosh is facing issue on CPU? I mean, sorry, memory. DB side or like application side? App server.
Santosh. Santosh, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah, hi.
He was,
Okay.
sorry, I lost it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
So
Chetan, you
okay,
can ask the question again. Yeah.
Yeah, what I was asking is like, I mean, are you facing issue these CPU memory and all these things? I mean, in DB or like in app server, application server?
This is with the app server course. Actually.
So when we talk about app server, I mean, like you said, like, I mean, your application are
Yeah,
hosted
because
in EC2, right? So
no,
in
no,
EC2,
no, we do the performance testing in
on-premise.
On-prem only. So then they are migrated into the cloud actually, and it depends from the client, customer to customer, because ours is the product, and the customer can either be in on-prem or they might use a different thing. But our product is specific to the middleware part actually. So cloud part we haven't explored it yet. So my detailing which I mentioned is specific to on-prem.
Okay, so if it is hosted in EC2, then I mean there will be ports, so minimum and maximum. So on the time you won't face these kind of issues. Let's suppose if your CPU is going beyond 60, so automatically scaling server will add one more server.
Okay, because these are banking, right? So still they haven't migrated to cloud. So there are some customers who are in cloud and some are not actually. Okay, I'm not aware of this part.
Yeah, so auto scaling server, generally we call it as a port.
We enable the auto scaling. Yeah.
So when we talk about on-premises, then I mean I think you have to debug. Like I mean I think you have to do benchmarking. Like you just have to start the load testing with XYZ number. Then you have to get the logs, and you have to see, I mean, which is causing the issue. Then you just try to optimize it. Then again you have to rerun the test. So yeah, you just have to do the benchmarking to debug this issue for on-premise.
Yeah, so here we are just discussing about the NFR. So yeah, I agree. So once we collect the NFRs, yep. So we used to go to the next steps where we do the fixing of the issues. But yeah, for now, this is only about the NFR. So where we do collect, because not everybody will have or will have to collect the same or will do have the same level of knowledge in collecting the NFR. So this one, because some of the times, like I think we do have get this question like how to deal with the NFRs during your interviews. Yeah, Avinash, go ahead.
Since ChatGPT is in like now AI is trending, so we may get requirements to do performance testing for generative AI. So we don't know. To brief in, there will be a gateway. We will get only limited access to the architecture. So in that case, what would be our approach? Since at the end, we don't know the data source, how it is coming, and the chat GPT could be a Pandora, which we don't, we may not have access to all those algorithms. So what would be the approach, or what shall we have to collect to do a generative AI performance testing?
Yeah, so your question is about how to test a generative AI application. Is that right?
Yes, and what should we be gathering? What will be our approach to get the NFR?
Okay. So when you say it's a generative AI, what kind of applications are you using? Like in the sense, like I'm asking, what could be the application that
It,
that you're facing? Yeah, it's a client facing one.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, it could be anything, since everything is
Mm-hmm.
getting into generative AI. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
Zoomka, they host a chatbot, or take some warehouses. They could have some chatbot. They may be planning to have a chatbot to give support.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
Okay.
it could be generative.
Right. Right. Got it. Got it. So if it's a generative AI, so how could you collect the NFRs, right? Is that the question, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Please, anybody can share your knowledge, like, or what is your experience in collecting a similar set of requirements? Please, you can share your knowledge here.
I mean, here, I mean, first of all, we just have to see Kafka things. Like when I talk about Kafka, it is a like middleware, it is a kind of mediator between two services, right? So when you try to send any request to the server, so Kafka will come into the picture. It will collect the whatever the request you are sending. So it will collect that and it will pass it to the messaging system, right? So
Okay.
once we got the response from messaging system, again Kafka will collect and Kafka will give you back. So
Okay.
Kafka,
But
what it will do? Kafka, what
yeah.
it will
Yeah.
do?
Please go ahead. Go
Let's
ahead. Go
suppose,
ahead. Mhm.
let's suppose you send a request, okay? So after maybe like from the messaging queue, you are receiving a response after 3 minutes, okay? So but for request timeout is maybe 60 seconds or 20 seconds, right? So on the time our request may get timeout. So on the time what Kafka will do, so even after 3 minutes, if you are getting the response from messaging queue, Kafka will collect that one and it will give you the response.
Okay.
Yeah. As per I know, I just shared. I don't know. I mean, maybe there are people can answer better.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else having experience in working on generative AI? You can share your knowledge in terms of the NFRs. Okay. And I have a question here. So when I think what's that? Yeah, Avinash. So when you are telling about generative AI, do you think Kafka is part of the application, or like what are the components? Do you have any idea like what are the components? At least you can give it in a high level.
No idea actually.
Oh, okay.
What could be the messaging backend? See, on overall architecture, what I understand is there will be a data source that will be giving. It will make the machine learning. It could be so, and there will be a data source and another database kind, vector kind of a database that will
Okay.
handle all the data. So in
Okay.
between there are multiple components. I am also just trying to learn what would be the what all we need to know to proceed in such cases.
Okay.
That is.
Okay. Got it. So yeah. So based on my experience, I would say these are the very major or like very basic NFRs that we have to collect. For example, So what could be the response times, which is the acceptable limits for generating the outputs based on the input prompt? So for example, if you are using chat gpt, just imagine from a end user. So if you are like logging into an application and there comes the a chatbot, okay, and you have to interact with it, right? So the main challenge here is, so the moment you enter your question, okay, and the real challenge here is like how quickly it responds to you, right? So that's the very first challenge, because that comes in terms of your response time. Because uh, the more it quickly responds to you, you can proceed with your questions and then you get your problem sorted, right? For example, you want to uh, get sort out of, I mean, like you have a issue with the billing and you want to talk to the team, to the business, right? And you are entering your all your details, and then you want to find, okay, what's the current bill and why is it been increased, or you are having some issues with the your bills, okay? So you are entering all your questions, and then the main requirement here is the bot should respond to you as soon as possible by going through all your data into the system, and then it has to come up with all your responses, and then it has to come to you with the end result, okay? And it has to make sure that, okay, you are completely satisfied with the results. But the thing here is the chatbot should respond to you very quickly. So the very first requirement is what should be your response time, and this you have to understand from the business, right? So you have to understand them, like how quickly, because it's not only just you. There'll be like registered users, like there'll be like more than 1 lakh or like 1 million users who will be using the chatbot at the same time, but they all will be testing, they all will be using, they will be asking their questions, like several questions. Everybody will not ask the same set of questions, like not, it's not just the billing. Somebody will be a kind of new user and they want to register the application. They will be asking for what all the benefits do they have, what all the offers do they have, and what kind of plans do they have, right? So these are some of the examples, right? So all these questions has to be answered, right? So when it comes to collecting the NFRs, you'll have to collect what are all the uh, requirements you have. And again, there is another quick thing, which is you have to know like what were the recent questions that's been asked to the chatbot, like what were the trending questions that's been asked, right? Because for example, if the chatbot is part of an application where they were launching new products, right? And if they are going to launch a new product, so your scope should be based on that. So if you are launching a new product, so all your questions has to be that. And then your question, so the reason why I'm telling questions is like that has to be part of your testing. So you have to include that as part of your question, and then whenever you trigger those questions, you need to understand how well it responds back to you. Because since all these answers are taken from a vector database, right? So that's what you're telling in your architecture. So you have to understand how well the vector database responds to your question or responds to your all your queries, right? So that is again a valuable way of testing, so that you can understand how well it responds back to you, right? So that's the very first thing. So which is how well your application responds, which is the chat gpt, the generative AI, and then the database that's been involved into it. And then we all do not know, but again there is a kind of a person who helps us with this, which is the load balancer. So the load balancer is a component which sits in between the servers and the browsers. So this load balancer will distribute, because like I told you earlier, we do have a lot of people who are reaching out the system at the same time, and then this load balancer will actually distribute the load to each of these servers. Okay, so this is something like a traffic controller. So it controls the traffic. It sends wherever the traffic is less, it will automatically navigate the users to them, so that there won't be a kind of a huge load that's been put up into one system. Rather, it will like distribute the load, right? And then coming to the throughput. So we have to determine the number of generative tasks the system can handle per unit of time. So we also so we know the response time, but again we need to know how much task the system can handle, right? So that's again another important thing which we need to know, because at some point of time the chatbot might break, because the capacity or the amount of requests it can handle can go beyond that, right? So you need to know what was the, or what is the maximum request or maximum task the system can handle, which is in this term your generative AI chatbot, right? And yeah, number of generative tasks the system can handle per unit of time. For example, it can be a particular second, or it can be a particular hour, right? And then moving on to the last one, which is the latency. So you must measure the delay between the receiving input and the starting of the generation process. So the moment you give your question, so you must understand, okay, it's a kind of a the receiving input and the starting the generation process. So let me add that between receiving input, so which is it the system receives the input and starting the generation process, because it has to uh, process whatever data you have sent. So all these things has to be understood from the client. So you must have a discussion with them, because it's not just that they tell you that okay, just go test this application and give us the response. It's not just like that. You have to understand what are all the requirements they do have, like in terms of the response times, which is the acceptable time limits for generating the outputs based on the input prompts, and then the throughput, which is the number of generative tasks the system can handle, and then the latency. So all these three things, so if you start collecting all these three, then automatically every requirement will start to line up. So for example, there is another requirement might also come, because these things have to be tested in terms of your load. But what if your application is getting scaled up, right? So in that perspective, if you think, you have to do a load testing, a load handling, a load testing, like you need to know the maximum. Okay, let me just write it down here. So you need to test how much load the system handles, and then you must know what is the scaling. So how much do are they going to scale, right? That's very important, because if the very first year they do have like 1 million users, it has to be scaled out to 1.5 million the next year, right? So based on that, you have to also design, you have to model the scaling for your system, and then the resource utilization. So where you have to find the CPU, the memory, and how much do they get access, do they get utilized, right? So you got to understand, or you have any other questions in terms of your generative AI thing?
I want to add a point here. The latency
Yeah,
depends
please.
upon the question being asked. It can be one liner or could be two liners. So when depending upon the question, we will get the
Mm,
response.
mm.
Let's
True,
say
true.
Chavity, find the route to Hyderabad. It could be
Mm.
from Vijayawada,
Mm,
but it may vary if we ask a different question via
mm, mm,
then the latency will change.
True, true.
I want to add this. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, thanks for that. So yeah, like you said, so there is like these options. Like you have one liner, like you said, you are giving a one liner input to your system, and then if you remember, there were like again a set of choices as well. Like if you see, the question might be like, what is the set of questions you have? Something like, is that from the offers, or is that from the billing, or is that your account details? So again, this does come up with the choices as well. It's not just going to be a typing thing. It's you're going to just click on selecting the items, right? So we do have come up with that as well. So these are some of the inputs that you're going to give, and the responses has to be very quicker for any sort of inputs that you're going to give to the system, right?
And one more thing, while taking your suggestions, I got another point. We also need to keep in mind of middleware or all the components which are interacting. There could be multiple APIs. What are all involved?
True. I agree that. Yeah. So yeah, you mean to say that what are all the APIs and how do they respond back using through the generative
Yeah,
API? Is that right? Okay, generative. Okay,
correct.
got
And they may be interlinked with
it. Yep.
multiple components. Yep.
Mm, mm, mm. Got it. And nowadays, I think I must say that we do have microservices also as part of the applications. It's not just about the traditional system. We do have microservices. We do have Kubernetes that's been spinning up as part of the application. Any application, whatever we do. Yeah. So nowadays, most of the application sits on top of the Kubernetes, and then they do process sending us all the data. Yeah, yeah. So anybody else can share their knowledge, like would be your approach, or what would be your question to the business to correct the requirement? So you can just tell us, so that you can add it to the list. Yeah, Abhinash, do you have any questions? Like, what would you think, or what would be
Uh,
your question? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
eh, Mostly covered.
Mm, mm. Okay, and Karthikeyan, you have any questions? Any questions so far in terms of NFRs, or in terms of this particular scenario? What would be your questions, or like how will you approach this?
No, I have some queries.
Yeah.
So if generally, I'm not fully working on the generative AI and the ChatGPT.
Mhm.
So anyhow, the we are if we are going to we are going to test the backend, the API maybe the matter, so that we can use the API load backend test is enough, or how is difficult to we are comparatively our normal application to load to the generally if you take with kind of LLM application to load. That's the my query on this. Yes, we will consider only the API to hit backend to check the load, or how we have to approach on this kind of application.
Okay, so your question is, are we going to test only the API, or is that going to be the backend as well? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks, Karthikeyan. So yeah, what happens is, normally it depends on what is the scope. Like for example, if we do need to test only the APIs, because they are like the new changes, or if there were like any changes in the backend, or if they were tested previously, then yeah, we do not need to concentrate into backend, because anyways, when we are testing an API, anyways it has to come through the front end, backend, and yeah, everything has to be part of it. So you do not need to specifically focus on the backend. Rather, you have to test your APIs, and that will take care of doing the testing, or like it will take care of giving the stress to the front end and the backend.
Okay, Vasan, got it.
Yeah,
And also, I'm having another
yeah,
query.
yeah, please.
It's not general. It's not related to this generative
Sure,
AI.
sure.
So our client is, just they are not background of fully IT. So we are going
Mm-hmm.
to support the full IT.
Mm-hmm.
So some they, it's kind of e-commerce site.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to help them to load or how they perform the time of any sales or thing, right? So they didn't have very much of knowledge, and I'm also very,
Mm-hmm.
not a great experience in background of
Mm-hmm.
comments and then note side.
Mm-hmm.
So how would be anyone the start hitting with the load? So which are the parameter we need to look if we generate the uh, report using JMeter or some other tool? So how we will say this have the breakpoint, or this is have the issue you have, you need to look on this. I know this is a some much big topic, but I just
Yeah.
send my notes here. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So yeah, let me answer you, Karthik. So for example, if you are testing a new application, so is that your question? Like you need to know what is the bottleneck, or how like you have to understand like how to navigate to the bottleneck, right? So to find the issue, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. How much? Load is. We need to say this much load is your. Application is handled. If you exceed this much load, you need to do the kind of how to say auto upscaling
Oh, okay,
like
okay,
that.
got
We need to,
got
because
it, got
they are using the AWS background.
it. Mm-hmm.
So
Okay, okay.
at the time of sales, generally, if the general load may be per day, the 100 load will come. At the
Mm-hmm.
sales time, we don't know, maybe the 1,000, because it's e-commerce, right? When they put some sales, it may increase the numbers till 1,000 to 3,000, but we
True, true.
don't. So how we need how we will check that thing, and then how we need to convey
So,
the
Karthik,
theme.
I have one question here. Like when we talk about
Right.
e-commerce application, is this existing or like new application?
Is it existing?
Okay, so when you are saying it,
But
Vishnu,
we
can I
are
take this question?
one. We are going to revamp the design.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
okay. Okay.
The client, I mean, they are currently, I guess, they are in some other legacy one. We are going to develop the Angular thing, and then
Hmm.
we use some CMS, Shopify CMS, and then we are going to revamp the site for that. So they need to know when the some sales comes or particular load will come to how the new application will handle the load or not, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Got it.
So,
Got it.
yeah, Vishnu, can I take this question? Or like you
Yeah,
wanted to
please,
go?
please. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So revamping in the sense like I mean, are there? I mean, they will just revamp the pages. I mean, only on the pages wise, right? They won't do all the application. I mean, all together, right? So
Yeah.
you are
Right now,
saying,
I
yeah,
mean, UI. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They will talk about UI only. So you are saying it is an existing application, right? So what you have
Yeah.
to all you have to do is, I mean, you just have to. There are two tools. One is Google Analytics and Adobe Analytics. Okay, which will give you the traffic on your current site. So you can get it on monthly wise, hourly wise, day wise, okay, second wise, and also pages wise also. So how
Okay.
much traffic is landing on yeah, home page, PLP, PDP, CLP, cart checkout, and all these things. Right? So first of all, you just have to collect all these things, okay, and you just have to test the a certain load, like what is the current load on your application, okay. After that,
Mhm.
you just have to scale up, like into 1.5 or into 2. Let's suppose they have, I mean, in your current site there is a 4K per hour. Now, once you have achieved that 4K, now we have to scale up that into 1.5. So, which means 5,000. I mean, you just have to gradually increase 1 into 1 into 1 into 1. Okay.
Okay.
And then one more thing, like let's suppose you are talking about any campaigns in the sense like deliberately. I mean, they will just try to send some promotion to WhatsApp, email, Facebook, and all right. So that one also you have to keep in mind. So for that one, what you have to do, I mean, there will be two types of scenarios. One is like BAU, as usual, business days, and one is festive sale. Festive sale
Mhm.
in the sense like in the Dasra time, like
Mhm.
there will be huge load coming on your system, right? So for that
Yeah.
one, you just have to, yeah, you just have to go back to the previous years, and from there you just have to collect the load. Okay, so on
Okay.
top of that, again, you just have to add 1.5, 1. I mean, 2x, 3x. So these for festive sale. And one more thing is you just have to test on BAU as well. Like you should be ready for both scenarios. Let's suppose there is
Mhm.
any sale is coming on that. So for that one, you just have to take previous year festive data. You have to test. On normal
Mhm.
days also, BAU also you have to test in both ways.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. So, okay, that's, I mean, data. I mean, okay, I understood. So, how we can say this is the your higher limit. In the if you achieve this limit, we can go for the. I mean, with this
Okay.
breakpoint. This is the
Yeah.
point that can increase the server kind of thing. So, how we will identify that?
So breakpoint in the sense like I mean whenever you're doing the benchmarking, right? So
Mhm.
on the time only you will get to know. Let's suppose now you are performing load test with 4K or 5K. There you will get to know. Okay, response times are maybe like your SLA is like maybe 1 second. Okay, so when you're trying to put beyond 4K, then you will see the response time is going 1.5 or maybe 2 seconds, right? There you will
Mhm.
get to know. Okay, if we are going beyond 4K, then this is our break even point. Like I mean, response times are going beyond SLA. So
Okay. So,
yeah,
what
on that
at the
time you
time?
just yeah.
Yeah, once the server hit is reaching,
Sorry to interrupt. So when it comes to the breaking point, it does not mean about the response times, but it's about the system, right?
System also
So the
right.
system, which is the app server or the app server, basically
DB
will stop responding. Yeah, will stop responding to your request. So that is where the breaking point of the system comes in. It's not about the response times, because the response times is something like which will tell us that how quick it is
Yeah,
responding, right?
SLAs, APS are respond right.
Yeah. So when it comes to the breaking point, yeah. So it's about how much data, how much load does can the system can handle at some point of time, and at some point of time, yeah, it'll start to break because your load cannot be handled by the system. Like it's beyond
Right.
what its capacity is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So Karthik, when it comes to your requirement, I would say, firstly, you need to understand what is the current setup or what is the current architecture, because you said you're going to revamp your application. So in that scenario, what happens is you're going to completely revamp. So which is like, I'm not sure, because some set of applications will have their legacy thing in their system, and they will be changing it very lately. For example, if some systems, like for example, if they are using mainframes, they'll still use the mainframes as their lower their backend, but still on the top they'll make all the changes. Like for example, they'll be bringing in Java, they'll be doing in the .NET in terms of their presentation layer, and they'll make all the changes. But still, their underlying the business, the logics, the mainframe, the database setup, everything will be same. It will be there, but still, like I said, they'll be changing only the top end, the front end, the presentation layer will be changed, right? So in your case, what was the change? Like any idea on like what were the changes that's been made? Is that are they going to migrate it to the cloud, or are they going to make any changes in terms of the presentation layer? So how that
No,
does going to change?
no, there is no, already they are in cloud only,
Mm,
AWS they are using.
mm,
They are
okay.
going to revamp the front end fully side. They are going to redesign the, old HTML, CM. I guess they are using Java Spring Boot template. Now they are
Mm,
converting
mm,
into Angular
mm, mm.
design, and then modern web app kind of thing. PWA, when progressive web app kind of thing, they are doing that. So generally, it's kind of fully on front end. Design kind of view. We don't change the back end and then AWS migration.
Yeah.
Fully,
Got it. Yeah, because normally if people don't touch the entire system, they do make changes part by part. So, for example, since you're telling us that the change is going to be the front end one, right?
yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. So what happens is they do want to make changes to their front end, like the presentation layer thing. And so, did you? I mean, have you got a chance to understand why is that change is happening? Like, why are they really changing the front end now? Like because
What
already they were in a I think in a modern technology, but still they were again moving to a different technology. So why is that?
generally, so their main thing is the responsiveness.
Hmm,
So
hmm, yeah.
be responsive, and also they are need to design. They are also planning to build the mobile app, so they want the same
Oh,
UI to
okay.
exactly for mobile, and that maybe the flow may different, but somewhat look view wise, right? So that's the reason they are going. And also Angular, and then there are a lot of components to import the logic, right? So for
Hmm, hmm,
searching optimization, and then image compatibility. Because e-commerce, so we need to lot of images we need to put searches,
hmm.
then uh, some kind of technical design. So they want to move it back to the front end alone.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So since you mentioned like these are some of the points that you have to note it down because they want to check the responsiveness and the mobile support, right?
Yeah.
So in that scenario, your requirement has to be based on that. So when they say responsiveness, so how quickly it has to be responding? Like for example, what is the response times do they expect for each of these transactions? And you must need to set up an SLA. And if they do not, because most of the times what happens is whenever we ask them what is the SLA, like they will ask us back that what was
Yeah,
the
exactly.
industry norms, right? So they'll
Yeah.
ask, yeah. So what do you think as the best response time? So that's some of the questions that we might be getting most of the time. So normally we used to tell them that okay, so 3 seconds is the response times. It can be the industry standard, but still it all depends. Like if your application is like too much capable of responding, it's still better than that. Yeah. So if your system can handle it, yep, then it can be better than that. So you have to do a kind of a benchmark testing where you must set up what is the SLA that has to be set for this one. So it does not mean that you have to all the time you have to go on only with 3 seconds. So you have to do a benchmark testing with a lesser load and check like how quick it is responding. And then, as you mentioned, it has to be a mobile support. So in that scenario, you will have to also do a mobile kind of testing. So it has to be like, I think both involves iOS and the Android. So since you have like two major browsing ecosystem, so we have to test both those, like the iOS and the Android.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Karthik. Any questions on this part, and we will collect the
No.
response from
So
other.
there is one suggestion from my side. So
Hmm.
if you are in the upcoming days, if you have any idea to how to do the load testing for especially on mobile app, you
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
this. You can also plan some other day in future.
Sure. So yeah, what are the
Vishwanath, I have one question here.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So you were talking about front end, right? So how we are going to cover that one using JMeter or like some other tool? Like you are saying 3 seconds is the SLA, so, but I mean we can't touch the front end, right? Generally, I mean we will concentrate on like back end only, server side only, right? Not on the client side.
Okay. So when he says front end, it's not like we're going to test the browser thing, but it's
Right.
again in terms of the front end. So, for example, you're going to give a request, and you have to wait for the response and see how quick it is responding back. Right, so that is the thing they wanted us to know, like how well it responds back to us, so that we can see the response in the front end. That's it. So it doesn't mean that we're going to test. Okay, again I agree that the components, the front end components, something like the JS or the
Yeah, yeah.
CSS, the PNG,
Architect
whatever
call.
those front end as well. Yep. So again, you need to understand that as well, because sometimes what happens is the applications like nowadays that comes with heavy set of components, like there'll be like too much of a load for the front end as well. Yeah, so in that case, yep, so we need to understand that as well, because I think we do have tools like Lighthouse, which throws us which tells us clearly that how much load that each of these components take. And we do have a lot of other components as well, like the TTFB, the time to first byte and the time for last byte, and what is the total amount of time that it takes. Like we do have a kind of flow chart, so that will tell us clearly that how much time that each component takes to load. Right. So in terms of the front end, like I'm saying, like
Exactly.
uh,
Right.
the response, yeah, it will come very quick, but how much time does it take for us to see or for the system to respond back? Yep. So in that
Right.
case, yep, I agree with your point. Like in terms of
Yeah.
front end, yep, there is a kind of a separate I would say metrics that we need to collect, like the TTFB or the total time for byte, the first byte. And yes, I agree with that point. Yeah. And yeah, Avinash, yeah, please go ahead, Avinash.
I want to add a point since we are doing NFR requirements. We
Mhm.
also need to know about since the e-commerce is hosted on a cloud. We need to keep in mind of the pods, the expansion of the pods, since it
Mm,
plays a
mm,
major role in scaling, in capacity planning,
mhm.
resource utilization. It plays a major role in while we are using cloud. So the resource planning can be done precisely. We have to gather about the configuration of the pods. What is the minimum replicas, maximum replicas that are available.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. I agree with your point. Yeah, since I think in terms of okay, since we are discussing about Karthik's requirements, I think in terms of his requirement, this is not going to be any changes with the pods. It's mostly into the mainframe. Sorry, the front end. So since it's mostly into the front end, I don't think it's going to involve any of the pods, because they do have all those set up previously. Yeah, the back end setup, I would say. So when it comes to the front end, I think they do are going to change the code changes as well. Code change is what they're concerned. I mean the front end change. So yeah, I agree. In other requirements, yeah, we do need to collect the pods details. Yeah, because nowadays I believe like more than 50% of applications were running on pods in terms of the budgeting or in terms of the handling. Yes, so I do agree. It goes on parts, but still, I think in terms of Karthik's requirement, it's mostly into the front end, where it deals only with the front end technologies and not with the back end or with the containers or with the Docker's part. Yes, yeah, Karthik. So other than this, so do you have any other questions which you feel that you might need to get answered in this forum?
No, no, no.
Okay,
Awesome.
you're good. Okay, thank you, thanks so much. Yeah. So yeah, anybody else could share their experience in collecting their requirements, like how well or what are the challenges you faced while collecting your requirements? Is that a kind of a easy way to collect for you, or like what was the challenges you faced? Yes, I can share your experience, like in terms of your NFRs, or how well do you think that collecting NFRs is easy, or like how do you understand, like, or do you have a team to collect that?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
Santosh.
yeah. I was having an interview question related to this. Like they were asking, like, what would be your approach? Yeah, for the migration. Like, assume you're completely on-prem and you're planning to migrate to a cloud. So, what
Hmm.
would be your approach in terms of servers or scaling up? What would be your approach to that? So, that was one of the questions which came up related to the requirements gathering.
Okay. So migrating from on-prem to cloud.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And what tests would you consider, or test data creation, or the scaling part,
Okay.
or pricing? Because auto scaling, like I'm not fully aware of it, because you cannot scale up completely, right? So it's like
Hmm.
because pricing factor would also come into place.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I agree. So these, I mean, like nowadays we used to get kind of a similar questions in a more manner, because most of the applications were being migrated from on-prem to cloud. Yes, I agree. So yeah, anybody else would want to share their knowledge, like, or what is your inputs for this particular question? Like, how would you answer this question? Yeah, anybody else? Chetan or Avinash, what is your input for this question?
No, I don't have experience on this, so I can't
Oh, from
answer.
migrating. Okay. Avinash, what about you?
I did migration
Mhm.
to an extent. We cannot give a apple to apple comparison for
Mhm.
on-prem to cloud.
Good. Yeah, I agree. Yep.
We cannot assure the same stats that what we were getting on on-prem and cloud,
Mm.
since there are a lot of parameters that impact while we are on testing cloud, hosting on cloud.
Yeah, true.
One thing. And majorly, since as I said, since we are working on cloud, we will be focusing on the capacity planning and resource planning, how they
Mm.
are
Mm.
configured, what are the and this also applies, like how the requests are being routed.
Okay.
uh, and how the requests are mapped, and reading the configuration is very important for us while setting up the parameters for expansion of the pods.
Mm.
This is my experience, what I gained through
Okay.
my migration.
Got it.
Yeah, you may add if any.
Sure. So the first thing is, like, firstly we need to understand what is the business objective of doing this, because is that uh, they do want to migrate from on-prem to cloud? Is that for the cost saving, or is that for the scalability, or for disaster recovery or improved performance? So when it comes to cost savings, what happens is, okay, let me just note it down for now here. So the business objective. So we must need to understand firstly the business objective, because this will actually help us to come up with the requirement. So whether it is cost perspective. So when it comes to cost perspective, yep. So when we are having an on-prem, we do need to have that setup, the on-prem setup in any of the location, and then we need to have people to manage it. We do need to do the regular patching. We need to do the regular maintenance of the applications, and we need to make sure that it runs 24 cross 7, which is like 99.9% availability or whatever it is. So that has to be taken care by the team. So that involves a lot of cost, right? The power, the electricity support, the payment to the employee. So all these things were being part of your system when it is on-prem. So your business objective is like, are we going to so yeah, majorly I agree that when you were migrating your on-prem to cloud, yes, so you're just going to pay for whatever resources you use. You do not need to worry about the electricity or the disaster recovery or whatever it is, but still it's just only the money. So you just need to understand the first business objective. So that should be a first question, like what is the business objective, or why are uh, we need to get clarified on that, like what is the business reason for migration. So that is the very first thing, and then we need to understand the scalability part. So are we going to scale out, or are we going to scale up the resources? So if you are having a set of resources, like for example, if you are having uh, 10 web servers, 20 app servers, and 10 database servers, and are you going to scale up, or is that going to be the same setup? You're going to just replicate the same exact thing to the cloud as well, right? So that's the another question which you have to understand, because when you are scaling up, it's not just about the numbers, but it's also about the power of the system. Because if you are using some 32 gig of memory for the system, instead you can just scale out something like you can scale up, like you can add a memory like 128 gig when it comes to the on-prem to the cloud. Because in on-prem, yeah, you do have a lot of restrictions. You cannot immediately change those setup. But when it comes to cloud, yeah, you do have a lot of flexibility. You can choose whatever the OS you need. You can migrate it to Linux, or you can migrate it to Windows. So you do have that flexibility, but again, you do have the flexibility of scaling up, right? And then the next thing is like, is that going to be part of your disaster recovery plan? Because we all know we were working in different geographies, and we do face a lot of calamities, natural calamities at one particular place. Like if like recently we had like floods in several parts of India, and there were things like one particular place get completely shut down at particular point of time, right? So that could be another reason, because people who are working all around, who are like using an application all around the India, and if the major their setup is somewhere in Chennai or somewhere in Mumbai, and if that gets flooded and if that goes shut down, there needs to have be a disaster recovery plan, right? So it has to be like up and running, even though their centers were down in one location. So that has to be again taken care of. So these are some of the objectives which we need to understand. Because when you understand that, okay, so there is a plan for disaster recovery, and your servers are placed in different locations. Like take for example, if in India, like we are placing your servers in south, and then you have something in the middle, in the center India, and then some you have in your east or west somewhere there. So the reason you are understanding this point is, you will have to use the load generators based on that. Because whenever you have your system in different locations, you need to again test your application based on the load as well, the load generators as well. So you have to you like what to say, implement those perspective in terms of testing. So you need to understand, like I said, the cost, the scalability, and then the disaster recovery, and is that for the improved performance as well. So is that going to be okay, you are expecting your application to behave well, the performance has to be much better. So yeah, in that case, yes, you need to understand, like, is that going to be that business objective? Like you are facing some performance issues, and you want to understand, like, you need to understand like how does it performs well after we are migrating it from on-prem to cloud. So these are some of the business objectives you need to understand, right? And then after that, like I said, like in fact, even in Karthik's example also, he said they are not going to migrate their back end, but it's just going to be their front end. So in that scenario, you just need to understand what is the scope of migration. So which part of the system is going to be migrated? Is that the front end? Is it the back end? Or is that just because in several scenarios, what happens is your web servers will be placed in on-prem, sorry, your web servers will be placed in cloud, but your database servers or your web app servers will be placed still will be in the on-prem. Because due to some data restrictions. They do not, the business do not want their data to be leaked out somewhere to the cloud. So what they normally do is they keep the presentation layer in the cloud, so that any request that comes in, the cloud can automatically handle it in terms of its efficiency, and then it will send it only some of the requests to the database or to the backend. So that can be handled by the setup, the current setup. So you need to understand firstly the business objective, the cost, scalability, disaster recovery, or improved performance. So what is going to be the goal, or what is the business reason? And then you have to understand what is the scope of migration. It's not going to be the entire set, but yeah, your question should remind like what am I going to migrate and what is going to still remain in the on-prem or in the current setup. And then you need to understand like what is the success criteria. So okay, I'm migrating the system, so what are going to be the success criteria for this? Is that going to be the performance improvement, or is that the cost reduction, or is that the enhanced security? Because some of the times we do need to migrate our systems to the DMZ zones, the demilitarized zones. So we people who are working in other countries like US clients or other clients might know that DMC servers, right? So that's a demilitarized zone, which is like it will be under the military zone, which has the highest level of security. Right? So these are some of the things which you must need to understand before you even start your planning. So this is something which you must collect as part of your requirement. This is the basic requirement that you should collect. Right? Yeah. Yeah, Santosh. So you got some clarity on this, or you still
Yes,
have?
yes, yes. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
fine.
okay. Okay. Great.
So, but the test
And
would be the same, right?
yeah.
Like whatever you're doing, like
Yeah. So when it
because
comes
yeah, as
to
you mentioned, apple to apple is not possible. But how we at least there should be a percentage of.
Yeah. So when it comes to testing, yeah, so you'll have to decide based on your objective. So when it comes to the scalability, so in that case, you have to do the scalability testing. So you were already doing a load test, right? So in your previous system before your migration, so you'll be having all your metrics, like what is the response times for that particular. For example, you might be testing your application with 1,000 users of load, and when your objective is to scale, like the business is something like they were testing from they are moving from 1 million user to 10 million users. So in that case you have to scale your testing and understand how does the system performs based on the scalability, right? So that's one in terms of the scalability. And if in terms of disaster recovery, we must need to do the failover testing. So when it comes to failover testing, we all know that we'll be having multiple servers, and then during your testing, you will have to bring down one of the machines, like somewhere in different location. Like you have to bring down their machines, and then you have to see how does the system performs with the all other servers. Does that behave the same way, or does the performance decreases, or it improves, or it does maintains the same way? You are understanding, right, so, Santosh? Like
Yes.
the failover testing part, yeah. So that is one thing which you have to do. Like normally we don't do for the normal load testing, but when the objective is disaster recovery, so in that particular point we do need to do this failover testing,
Okay.
right?
Right.
And then when it comes to the improved performance, yeah, so we need to have we need to do multiple load tests, and we need to see whether the performance has been improved in the new system. So you are going to test, so you already have all your results in your current on-prem setup, and then you're going to use the same set of load into your cloud setup, and then you're going to test the system and see how does the performance improve. So basically you can come up with what is your load test based on the business objectivity. So once you understand what is the business objective, then based on that you can understand like, okay, so for this particular objective I'm going to do this testing, because we do have several tests like load or spike or scalability or volume testing. So every test has their own objective, and that depends on your requirement. So that's the reason we were like stressing a lot onto collecting the requirements,
Yeah,
right?
I get that.
Yeah. So yeah, any other questions in terms of this, or any other example challenges you face, or like any of your interview questions in terms of your NFR?
Yeah, and just an extension to this scaling thing, like generally we would come across the questions like, assume you are testing, like when you say you have a load test of 1,000 to 2,000 users, and there is a requirement coming from that we need to scale to 100K or 1 million or 2 million users, like during sale or anything. So,
Yeah.
what would be your approach and how do you do that? So, that was like mostly in any interviews, this used to spike up at this question actually. For
Yeah.
large
Yeah.
scale, yeah, very large scale user load, how would you handle it?
Yeah. So yeah, so whatever the load that they tell us, so that will be in the production. So, but we cannot use the same production load to the testing environment, because we all know there will be a huge difference between the testing environment and the production environment, because we'll be having like most of the scenarios, we'll be having like 1/10 of what we have in the production. We'll be having like one web server, one app server, and one database server, and we even do not at several scenarios we do not even have a load balancer setup. So we must first have to have a exact replica of what we have in production, but at least it should not be like a production thing, but at least we should have something like a pre-prod setup, uh, in a way that it should at least mirror some of its features. Like for example, at least you should have uh, two web servers with at least one web server, one app server, and then one database server, and there should be this load balancer setup. And once you have that, you have to automatically scale down your production load to the test environment. For example, if you, like I agree, you need to have like test at least 1 million of users. And when it comes down to the test environment, you have to scale down the load so that you can get the actual response times. Because when you are testing an application with 10 users, and when you want to test the same in one server, you have to scale down automatically the load, right? So it's all about scaling up and scaling down the load based on the actual setup we have. So once you understand that particular once you are able to compare that numbers, then yeah, with that numbers, then we'll have to run the test.
Yeah, I think similar to this question, there will be an extension or a question before that, like on what basis, like you design your performance testing environment, because definitely you will not have your performance testing environment given like production environment. So when you test your application in your performance like NFT environment, how do you ensure that you are going to meet your NFT requirements? How can you guarantee that this application would work in the production with 1 million users, but you're saying that you test only with 10,000 users?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So in that case, see the amount of throughput is again a key point here, because if we even though we have 1 million of users, the throughput is again a key, because how quickly they do send the request and getting back. Because since you are in production, we all know the amount of requests, the speed of requests that we are sending will be quite slower than what we are doing it using a system, like what we are using testing using a tool, right? Because when you are using normally, for example, even we as a human being, when we are logging into an application, we normally are not very quick in sending the requests, right? So we do take our own time in typing the URL, or in navigating, in moving our mouse. So the way the quicker is possible only through your tool and not through the human interaction. So in that way, we will be able to achieve the throughput. But still, yeah, we see, again, like I said, there is two things. Like one is we cannot give the load like what we have in the production, because we do not have that setup. So we have to actually scale down, and then we have to test the system, and that is how we are going to get the response times. So since we do not see, yeah, I agree that we do not have the same setup, that's like apple to apple, but yeah, this is something like we have to do with whatever the scale download, and then we have to test it. So in no scenario we cannot use the same load which we have in production, and yeah, we cannot achieve the same thing. But still, that's the reason we most of the times we do ask the client to give the same setup. But yeah, in terms of the budget, or in terms of the cost, in terms of maintenance, yeah, they will not give us. But still, the scaling down is the best option that we normally do to run this test. But yeah, this is up to me. But if anybody else can share their knowledge, yeah, it will be very helpful, like in terms of your experience. Yeah, Avinash, Sai, what is your input for this? Chetan, Ashish.
So as you said, there will be multiple types. Some of the clients like telecom giants, they may be having production like environment so that
Hmm,
they
hmm,
don't have any slippages while pushing something onto the production. Since
hmm,
they do introduce all packages,
hmm,
or
hmm,
now
hmm,
and then they will have some sale promotions to have not any slippages. They
hmm.
will have a production like similar. They just um, mirror.
Oh, okay,
They will
okay.
provide all kind of data that has to be backend, everything. Then
Hmm,
the
hmm.
approach will be different again.
Okay, okay.
We need to take care of all the components surround the peripheral, like how TIPCO is arranged, how it is interacting with the downline middleware things.
Hmm,
All
hmm.
these also have to be considered
Okay.
for a proper performance testing. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree because when we say about the architecture, it's not just about the app servers or the web server or the database server. It's again, we do have third party services, and then we do have the APIs that has been communicating between the servers. Yeah, so that's a huge amount of other setup that's been involved. Yeah, but all these things has to be taken care when you are trying to replicate your production to the pre-product to the testing environment. So these things has to be considered. So only these things can be known only when we study the architecture. So the more you study the architecture, we'll come up with the more better solution in terms of the testing, so in terms of the performance testing. Yeah, and anybody else? Ashita, what's your input on this?
Sorry, Vasant, I could not like I don't have much experience on this.
Mhm. Okay, so have you worked on any on-prem migration to cloud? Any idea
No.
on that part? Okay. So what about your experience in NFRs?
Yes, so with regards to NFRs, it's like what you had mentioned previously. And in terms of challenges, if the production environment is not the replica of
Hmm,
the I mean the lower environment or the scaled down
hmm,
environment, then there are multiple challenges like what should be the configuration, how are we going to extrapolate the results, sorry,
hmm,
and
hmm,
also if the customer is like a if it's a bank or any customer which could not have error percentage, like maybe
hmm,
even
hmm,
1% error percentage, sorry,
hmm,
then what needs to be done, like how should it be taken care, and also in terms of collecting all the NFRs, if the client is is non-technical, then there are multiple
hmm,
challenges
hmm,
because they won't understand what the critical business scenarios are there in terms of business, basically, because um, if it's suppose if it's a functionality where we need to change the password, then it won't impact the business much and it won't have the load test functionality, but they don't have all these understandings, so it becomes like more challenging. So these are some of the experiences that I have with like on in terms of gathering non-functional requirements.
okay. Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is one of the very common issue that we face. Like the client will have, they will need to know the performance, but they will be having a lesser knowledge when it comes to collecting the performance, because we'll be asking them multiple questions, but they were like, we were asking them some question and they will like completely out of their scope. They think that we were asking something else, but we are trying to help them, but most of the times what happens is like they will not understand, so that will make the job very tedious. But again, yeah, in that scenario, like if the client is quite they have performance testing challenged. So in that scenario, we'll have to reach out to the development team. So that's what I normally do. So I normally reach out to the development team or to the business analyst, because they are the proper person, people in the team who knows what is happening and how does it work. Yeah, Avinash, go ahead.
My question is, what would be our approach? The client has a lot of environment, and he is very particular about his data, and he is coming up with a new. I mean, this is an interview question, so I
Mm,
guess so. He is coming up with a new application. He
mm,
wants to do performance testing,
mm.
but he will not give any access because of his data,
True,
production
true.
data.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Yep.
how will you get the NFR? How will you identify the scenarios? How will you do that? This
Oh,
is the
okay.
interview question.
Okay, okay. No access for this. No access. Got it. Got it. Yep. Access for the system. Yeah. So yeah. So in that case, yeah. So when you say no access for the system, so most of the times I would say like the performance testers do not have access to the database or to any of the system, but still access to the application is possible. But still, again, in some scenarios, what happens is like we do need to talk to the team and get at least a test access, so that we can log into the application and see how does the application navigates, what are the pages it's using. And again, in terms of the data, yeah, we need to create the test data on our own. Like for example, if you are using some application, we need to create some test data. For example, if it's a kind of an airline application, then we need to create a PNR. And if it is something like an insurance application, then we need to create the insurance, the number, whatever it's related to it. And yeah, so uh, when it comes to no access, yep, I really agree. The client do not want to share their actual data, the production data. So in that scenario, yep, so we need to create the data on our own. We need to come up with the transactions. So yeah, in terms of transactions, yes, I can understand. We can talk to them and understand like what are the transactions that they want us to test. But in terms of data, yeah, we need to create the test data on our own, and we do not want to touch any of their production data, because in some scenarios we used to get some data which is like they will do some scrubbing and then they'll use to give us some data. But in some scenarios, if we do not get that benefit, yep, so we need to create the data on our own. So in that scenarios, we can use some automation tools, like even you can use JMeter to run a particular scenario, and you can collect those data using print or whatever you can do. Yep. So that is one scenario. But apart from this, what were the other questions that's been asked that's related to this question, Avinash? So when they say no access to the system, what is they add?
Yeah,
Hmm.
we don't have Google Analytics. How will you identify the scenarios? And how will you come up with the important transactions? What all the scenarios you would pick? How
Hmm,
do you
hmm.
pick without
Ah,
having
okay.
Google Analytics, or you don't have production log access?
Hmm, hmm.
So
Yep.
the client is very stringent about his
Hmm.
environment.
Got it. Yeah, so that's the reason I have told you from the beginning. Like, we used to know, or we used to understand what is the change or what is the objective. Like, are they going to test a set of application, or is that going to be this particular release? Because we all know nowadays everything comes into agile. So we were releasing the changes part by part. So, for example, if you were into an agile project, we might be releasing a very particular change for that month or whatever the change that's happening. So we need to understand what is the change that has been released for this particular agile at the end of the sprint or the scrum, end of the sprint, sorry. And then you need to understand like what was the change that's been made. Is that a kind of a front end change, or is that a kind of a back end change? Because based on that, you will need to come up with your plan as well. Because nowadays we all know every test has to be part of your CI/CD. So you do not need to run your test separately. It has to be part of your CI/CD. So where if the developers make any change, or whenever they do check in their code, so automatically your functional test has to be run, your automation setup has to run, and then again your performance test also has to run. So in that scenario, you'll have to come up with you need to understand what is the change that's been triggered, that's been going to released, So based on that, you'll have to come up with your set of transactions that, okay, so in this particular scenario, you're going to, there is some changes in the search transactions where you are making some changes in the front end, or you're making some changes in the API that's connecting your database to the app servers. So in that scenario, you'll have to test only that particular scenario or that particular transactions. So all comes only based on the changes. So what is going to change? So I'm going to test that scenario. That's it. And if they still want more, then yeah, based on that, you'll have to scale up the scope. You have to increase the scope, and then you have to bring in more changes. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah. Yeah, Abhinesh.
Basant, I'll be coming to the last question, which was asked by that. Suppose we have 100,000. Suppose we
Yeah,
have
please.
10,000 user in performance environment, and 100,000 will be used in
Yeah.
production. Okay.
Yeah.
So mostly, suppose mostly if you go to the database, there also will be having the timings measurement columns of some application. Okay, of some APIs. If you consider that timings, okay, and if you consider your production timing of the database, that will give you a significant means I mean to say significant number of comparison of response times, how your APIs are interacting, and what is the database timing of that processing of that API, and the same API, how it is processing, and how much records are processing, and what is the response time it is giving in the production database. So like this, we can compare both the timings of the database, and we can we can have a conclusion. Yeah, we can say that the average timing of this 10,000 hits, and the average timing of 1 million hits of both can be comparable.
Okay, got it. So you're saying, like, if I'm able to achieve a particular response time with 10,000 users, I must achieve the same with 1 million users as well, right?
No, we cannot say exactly the same, but we can in the database we can have some we can say that there are, suppose for 10,000 it has come that average was 3 seconds. Okay.
Okay.
And the same thing for 1 million, it will be around 3.5 second or 4 second. So we can tell that, yeah, this is the average of 10,000 hits, and it's lower environment, and then in the production there are multiple database, and it's coming 3.54 seconds, so it can be comparable.
Got it. Yeah. So yeah, I agree, Abhinesh. Yeah, that's very true. Sure. Again, on top of it, most of the testing that we do is that's the approach that we're going to do, because not everywhere, not anywhere we used to get that same scenario. So everywhere it's going to be the same setup, and we do are using that same similar kind of setup to test all this. Like in terms of database or in terms of any of your setup, it's just going to be the smaller scope or smaller capacity when it comes to the production. So everywhere it's the same setup, and we do use that. So it's not about just the capacity, but it's all about the configurations as well. Because in one of the scenario, I have mentioned it in several of my videos. So what happened is, like, we had a setup where everything was working fine, and the issue was with one of the load balancer. So if your load balancer was not properly set up, right, where if the load is not properly been it's not been properly trafficked. So what happened is, like, the response times were like, it was like going beyond what we expected. It's because the load balancer was not working for one of the system. Like it was not trafficking the system to the other machine. It's just trafficking all the load to one particular machine, right? So it's not just about having the same capacity. It's also about all the intermediate components, like the load balancers or the servers, the what to say, the firewall. So everything is part of your system. So all these things has to be properly tested, because even though you have a similar setup, right, and if you are facing the issue, it does not mean that your application is down or your code is not working fine. It has to be like some components like this, and these things you have to be you have to do some analysis and understand, like, because okay, so let me tell you, like, how did I find this issue. So what happened is, like, we were completing the testing, and we found out that the response times were higher. Everything was same, nothing has been changed. The only thing what was changed is, like, we have added a new machine to the system, and that was not been properly load balanced. So what happened is, like, we were sending the request to the same machine, and in that's the reason, like, the response times went higher, because it needs some time to respond back to the system, right? So this is one of the scenario where we have found out that it's not only about the capacity, but it's also about the components. Like, we need to find the whether everything is working fine, because we were able to find that only one of the CPU has its utilization been increased more than like 30-40%, but the other CPU was like less than 0%. And then when we still drill down and found out that there were no requests that's been sent to the other server, and that's because there is an issue with the load balancer. So this is one of the ideal example, because most of the scenarios we will miss this part, and we will think that, okay, there is some issue with database or with some issue with the code or something like that. So in that scenarios, you can come up with this thing, like, you need to check the CPU utilization, because that's the reason we were asked to check the CPU utilization and the memory utilization as well.
Yeah, correct. And Basant, one more thing I just wanted to discuss. Nowadays, what happens, right? If you see, your requests are giving means 200, okay. But in the back end, due to some upgrades or due to some patching, it may get some errors, okay. That errors also, that error processing time, suppose it's in some millisecond, it is also calculating in your request count, okay. So we need to check that though our request is fine, but we should not get any errors in the in some app server or database server or any CRM servers. So it will also pile up your response time more.
True. I agree.
So yeah, so the nowadays the errors also making, and though our front end request will be successful, but in the back end there will be multiple errors per one request. Though it's from database or app server or somewhere, it will also make your how we'll get that, we'll get it from APM tools. So each and every, if you go to the APM tools, we can see that errors also.
True. I agree. Yeah, that's a very value-added point, Avinash, because we normally only use the JMeter tools, and like you said, it's only responding back the 200 response code, which we think, okay, everything is fine. But when we go into the APM tool, like, where it bifurcates all the components, and only there we can see, okay, there is some errors that's been triggered, and like you said, we need to find, like, why is that being triggered? Like, is that something like we are giving a wrong test data, or is that something like that particular component is failing to respond back? Yeah, I agree with you, Vinesh,
And for that, even if you see, in my application, I'm telling, if you see a single or the error percentage would be less than 0.1%. In our production support team, they will shout, and we are getting errors. We should not get it. 0.1% of error in the logs.
True.
So,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
though
So
the
most of
requests
us,
are successful, but we should not get errors, and that error will pile up going forward, and we don't know, for this error cascading effect will come.
True. Yeah, we should not get even 1.001% of error, because when it comes to the testing environment, if we say it's like 0.001, but when it comes to production, it will be like more than that, right? So
Right.
the amount of error also will scale up. So
Yes,
we need to fix that particular errors also, even in that testing environment, so that they don't come up with the production. Yep, I agree with that point, Vinesh. Yeah. So the more we use the APM tools, that will be very helpful for us to fix these kind of issues.
Yeah, if it is a very sensitive application, then that 0.001% error also, it will be scaling up going forward.
True. Because we say it's like 0.001 error, but just imagine it's like some amount of users who are facing that issue. Like, for example, like if it is like 1 million users, then we can say like at least 1,000 users are getting into that issue, and they do not know what to do.
Exactly. 1,000 user. Yeah, exactly. 1,000 users are getting that errors, and we don't know after 1 month and 2 months when the hits will be high, right? Suppose there will be 2 million users, then definitely there will be 5,000 errors for that particular transaction.
True, true, true. I agree. And if it is like a too critical transaction, yeah, I agree. Then that has to be like taken care even before it's been released to the production. Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
the error is again, it's a very major component. Yeah. Thanks, Abhinash, for throwing some light on that. Yeah. So when we say error, so we think that it might be some smaller thing. We it's kind of an acceptable thing, but yeah, it's not acceptable if the numbers are less, even though if it is less, because when it comes to a higher load, yeah, it will be like in a very big manner. And at the end of the day, what happens is like the client will lose their faith on that application, and they think, why should I use this application? See, it's like throwing errors and it's like failing my transaction, so why should I come back and use it, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. Thanks, Abhilash. Yeah, this error, yeah, I agree. This is something which has to be taken care. Yeah. And yeah, thanks, Abhilash, again for sharing some knowledge in that part. Yeah. So anybody else has any other questions on this part, or we can wind off for today?
Nothing from this session, but I request you to make some videos on APM monitoring. How do you analyze, or how do you get into in-depth
Sure.
deep diving? Yeah, thanks.
Definitely. Yeah, it's in progress. I'll just do it sometime, and then yeah, we'll upload it, and then we'll have a separate boot camp as well on that sometime on Dynatrace. I'm just planning for some tools. Maybe I'm planning to have some boot camp on the visual VM profiler, because nowadays people were asking a question where they ask a question that how will you approach in scenarios where you do not have an APM tool, right? So in that scenario,
Same.
yeah.
Correct. How do you analyze a heap dump or thread dump? What do
Yeah,
you how do you get it? And what are the PIDs? How do you get that PIDs to get into that? So these
yeah,
are the questions they raise. And
yeah.
how do you fix that? This is the only problem without having any APM tools. Yeah, this is a
Yeah.
major question.
Yeah, that's true, because not every project will have the flexibility to use a APM tool. So it needs some budget, right? So in that scenarios, we can use the profilers. Yeah. So I'll just take you through the profiles. Like we do have MAT, the memory analyzer tool, and then we do have Visual VM, and there are like several other tools that's been used in the market. They were like open source, and you can use those tools to do the analysis of the thread dump or the heap dump. Yeah. Go ahead.
I want to add a point here. Though we have all the tools in the in-house, we rarely have the access to them.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I agree.
We
I know.
will have only dashboard. We will
Yeah.
we'll start the load test. We'll get the dashboard. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the final numbers. Yeah, I agree.
But we will get the questions. How do you deep dive in?
Yeah, I agree with your point, Avinash. Yeah, I do have come across that. Yeah, so I know how does it ping. Yeah, Santosh, you are telling you something.
Yeah, when it comes to visual VM, right? So other thing is generally, yeah, setting up of it is also a little bit complicated task, because
True.
even we need those steps, because remote server sometimes getting those the property set up is, even though you set up, sometimes the graphs won't show up actually if it's not configured, the port numbers and the proper parameters which are required for it.
And you are telling about setting up, but again, most of the teams, like, they do not even give access for us to do the setup. So they'll
Yeah,
say,
that's what
no,
I'm
you do
saying.
not have.
Access, access
Yeah.
also. Yeah, access also. And when it comes to MAT, right, straight, even I think not all the local systems in India, which normal configuration laptops cannot even open a heap dump.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be in GBs actually.
True.
Yeah, those things are also there actually. That's the reason I think they're actually going out for this APM tools
tools.
where where everything is served in a package kind. But APM again, configuring the agents is again an issue actually. Even that is also given to NFT teams nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think nowadays people are taking people for dynamic Dynatrace administrators. Like there were like separate roles for that.
AppD admins are New Relic, directly they're looking out
Yeah.
for admins who can set up and configure the dashboards. So that is a
Hmm.
separate role altogether apart from NFR.
Yeah. Yeah. People want to
And
maintain that.
one
Yeah. Yeah, Avnish.
Uh, and one more thing, sometimes we won't have proxy access for
Hmm.
JMeter
Hmm.
or load runner, but
Hmm.
client expect us to develop a script. So we take the help of developer tools, but
Yeah.
we end up in a confusion. You see, when you hit a home page, you will get a lot, almost 20 or 30 requests.
Hmm. Hmm.
So many a times we end up, should we take all those or should we consider only few?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one more challenge while scripting, and a
Yeah.
very pathetic situation like they don't give access or prior proxy.
No, Avinash, you should only take the HTML request, right? For the
No. There are some requests which generate some code. You may be having a API internally or payload that will be associated with a request. We have to
HTML.
understand which payload is.
If you go to the HTML request, that will internally trigger that API.
No, there will be, yeah, could be.
There should not be different API. It will come into your front end. In each HTML page, the API is configured, and it will hit the API will hit. Am I correct, Vasan?
Not,
Yeah, I agree
not
because in some scenarios, Avinash, what happens is you'll be having multiple requests. They were getting recorded as part of your network, but that doesn't mean that you have to have all the requests because you'll be hitting against your server, right? So, for example, if you are testing up against pet store, so you have to collect only those pet store related requests and not all the requests. So you have to filter out those requests.
Yeah, and while we are having NFR discussion, I also want to add a point. We should know about the payload also. See, certain times what happens is a payload may have multiple samples. A
Okay.
payload may have one or two samples while
Okay.
while we are sending to the server. So the response time varies while you are sending. It depends upon the payload also. We have to consider these factors also.
Got it. Yeah, I agree with the point, Avinash. Yeah, it all depends because not everybody is working a kind of a same set of application, but every application is different, every users are different, and every clients are also different. So yeah, it all differs based on that's the reason. Like we do have different challenges in terms of our own application. We do not face all the time the same challenges. It's all the times it's different, and yeah, I agree with that. And the complexity is also quite different. Sometimes, like even Santosh has mentioned the same thing. Like they'll ask us to set up everything, but they will not give access to it. So at the end of the day, we'll have to struggle a lot even to get access to one particular machine and to do all the setup and everything. Yeah, I agree with that part. That in terms of the performance testing, yeah, that's another very big challenge. I would say to get access even to the database, even to do any select query, it's very difficult because they'll not give access to the database. They will say just use the application and do whatever you need to do. Don't commit to the database.
Yeah, and
One of
and we need to
one,
know the ports which are required also because when you want to do like
Hmm. Hmm.
Visual VM port again Grafana setup, you need to
Yeah,
know what ports are required. So setting up scripting is a nightmare, but setting up the monitoring and the this thing that is
the
also separate.
infrastructure. Yeah,
That is
yeah,
also a complete
exactly.
task altogether.
yeah.
Uh,
True. That's
uh,
true. That's true.
and one of my experiences, the client was asking us to test the processing rate of a security tool, but
Hmm.
he was
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
ready to give us the security logs.
Oh, okay.
We should create our own logs. But
Hmm. Hmm.
how do you create
Hmm.
access logs or logs of a peripheral device like Wi-Fi or some printer devices?
True.
How do you create? They won't create. So hardly
Yeah,
we have to fight with the client.
true. That's true. And yeah, in some scenarios, so where we do not have access because the system, we do not have some end system to test or something like that. So in that scenarios, we used to do this stub thing where we used to create some setup on our own, and then we used to test. But again, it's a kind of a tough, like I said, Santosh said, it's a kind of a nightmare to do all those setup. But still, yeah. So in those scenarios, we'll have to talk to several teams. Like we need to discuss with the infrastructure team or with the dev team, and to understand and to keep them understand, like, okay, so see, this is going to be the real challenge, and we need to get it done for some reason. Otherwise, that's the reason we used to prepare the test plan and everything. So if this has not been set up, then we are not able to move to the next step. But still, yeah, in some scenarios they'll say, okay, just do whatever available thing you do have, and then give us the results. So that's again, in most of the times we used to get, like, whatever is available with you, just test with that system, and that's enough for us. But that's not going to be a kind of a fruitful, or that's not going to be the a valuable result that we are going to give to them. But yeah, it's not in all the scenarios, but in some scenarios, yes, they do exist, and we were actually facing that, and we were coming across that.
Yes, but people still think performance testing is a cakewalk.
But it actually is not. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, yeah. Is there any other questions we have, or we can wind up for the day?
Yeah, Bosan, thanks for this interactive session. We should going forward. We'll looking forward for other sessions also.
Sure. Yeah, you can just send in the chat so that we can plan on our next chats, and then, like I said, we will plan for a visual VM profile or a mat, at least to have some basic understanding. Because even though you are not going to use in the project, we are not able to allow, but still, this will help you to at least crack your interviews, and it will give you some understanding on, like, how does exactly this tool works, so that you have some better understanding. Because in some scenarios, I think I was talking to some of our subscribers previously, and they were working for some local Indian local clients, and they used to have some quite a good number of tools, good access to good tools, and those tools actually will give us some knowledge on, like, how do we can use that. They were like open source, and they were like lightweight applications. So I'll just get a chance, if I get a chance, I'll just walk you through that, and then, yeah, like, we'll have some roundtables every week, like this, every one after other week, and then we'll share more knowledge, and I'll try to bring up more people into this roundtable, and then we'll gain more knowledge, like what we did today.
And Basant, one more thing. Suppose you will show the demo of the MAT tool, right? Memory analyzer tool. So there, if you use JPEG store web apps, there you can do some memory management. Means like do some infinite loop, so the object will keep how the memory. So that kind of demonstration you can.
Yeah. That's what is planned. Yeah. So whatever is possible with that mat and whatever the available setup, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Avinash, for your input. Yeah. And yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for joining and being patient for all this time. And thank you so much for all your inputs. And yeah, please do watch the videos which I'm sharing, and then, yeah, keep connected. And then, yeah, we'll meet next week. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vasan.
Thank you. Thanks, Santosh. Thanks, Karthik. Thanks, Avinash. Thanks, Ashita. Thank you. Thanks so much. And yeah, take care. Bye. Bye.